Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Well, this morning, I think you could tell that a warm front has gone through the Northern Mid-Atlantic. Temperatures are very warm with low temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over much of the Philadelphia metropolitan area and around 60 degrees in the New York City metropolitan area as the warm front is slowly moving through those locations this morning. The one aspect, though, that is universal is that it is very humid out, as plenty of moisture is moving into the northern mid Atlantic. Now, the potential for severe thunderstorms is growing, but it will strongly depend on two factors. One of those factors would be the ability for these low clouds that are centered over eastern Pennsylvania and throughout much of the northern mid Atlantic to clear out and break up and allow for enough sun to warm the atmosphere and for the atmosphere to become rapidly unstable. I do expect that to develop as we move on through the early afternoon hours, and that I expect most locations to actually experience scattered clouds by the time we get into the 1 to 2 o'clock time period. And by that time, the atmosphere will become very unstable and temperatures will skyrocket into the lower to mid 80s over much of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. The only location that might not get that warm will be locations like eastern Long Island and parts of southeastern Connecticut and southern Connecticut, with winds coming right off of the Long Island Sound and the Atlantic. Otherwise, we are dealing with a very warm and humid day. Get used to it, it's going to be the same pattern for quite some time. But what else could suppress severe weather? Well, let's take a look at the water vapor satellite picture. This is the water vapor satellite picture as of 11 a.m. and I have two areas circled. One area is very strong winds at the upper levels over parts of New England, and the other area over parts of the southern Mississippi River Valley and also the Tennessee River Valley. These two areas of strong winds represent strong upper level disturbances. The one to the north is a polar disturbance, the one to the south is a subtropical disturbance. Why is this important? Well, notice there's a break over the Ohio Valley between these strong winds, because winds are accelerating and then declining and then accelerating once again. These are called jet streaks. And what's happening is that in between these areas of lifting and strong winds, there has to be an area of subsidence or winds that are lighter. And it looks like that area of lighter winds and sinking air is starting to move towards the northern mid-Atlantic. So basically what I'm trying to say is that it looks like there's a pretty good potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms over parts of the Hudson River Valley, especially north of Poughkeepsie, and much of New England. There's also a very high potential for severe thunderstorms, possibly long track tornadoes as well, over parts of the southern Mississippi River Valley and the Tennessee River Valley, and could potentially push into the southern Ohio River Valley. That means that the showers and thunderstorms that develop over parts of western Pennsylvania and then track east may not be as intense because all the lifting is focused to the north and to the south, which means the thunderstorms end up being weaker over our locations. We're going to have to keep an eye on this and see exactly how these thunderstorms develop, but this is why you can't forecast long range as to the exact position of severe weather. Clearly, what we're going to be watching for is to see whether these winds over the Tennessee River Valley shift a little bit further north and allow for severe thunderstorms to intensify over parts of southern Pennsylvania as well, which then could impact locations like Philadelphia and New York City. So we're going to be watching that throughout the afternoon with the NYNJPA weather live coverage. Well, what about the rest of the week? Well, what we have here is the European model guidance from the Penn State EWOL website. And this is basically the upper level pattern that we can expect from now all the way through this coming weekend. As you can see, we have a deep trough setting up over parts of the Great Lakes down through the Mississippi River Valley. What I have in yellow is basically our storm track. Areas of low pressure move through the west coast, drop down towards the southern plains, and then are shooting up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley. Meanwhile, a strong ridge is starting to develop over the western Atlantic. What this does is it pumps up a lot of moisture and a lot of warm air up along the east coast producing a very warm and humid weather pattern. We're talking about temperatures in the 80s for highs and dew points in the 60s. Very summer-like. Perfect timing for Memorial Day weekend. Now, the majority of the disturbances are going to remain to the west of the Philadelphia, New York City metropolitan area, which means we're going to miss the brunt of the strong to severe thunderstorms. But I can't rule out a thunderstorm possibly impacting the northern mid-Atlantic each day. Now, the good news is that, see this purple area that's basically sitting over the east coast? That is sinking air, and that will inhibit the potential for thunderstorms to develop throughout the entire region. But I can't rule out a few widely scattered to isolated thunderstorms each afternoon, especially over portions of eastern Pennsylvania and along the Delaware River. Otherwise, enjoy the summer-like conditions because it looks like they're going to be lasting for some time. Looking at the pattern for next week, I think you're going to like what you see as long as you like summer-like conditions. A large ridge is going to develop over the east coast, and this is because it's in response to a deep trough developing over the west. As a result, the storm track is shifted well to the north into the central plains, the northern plains, and the central Great Lakes. As a result, we remain generally dry and very warm and humid, with temperatures in the 80s, possibly the 90s by the middle of next week, and also very high humidity. Now, while I don't expect any organized showers or thunderstorms in this type of pattern, I can't rule out a few mid-level disturbances or some mesoscale disturbances, creating the potential for showers and thunderstorms each afternoon. They won't be widespread, but when they do develop, they could potentially be very severe. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But notice, this is basically what I've been discussing in the premium discussions for the past 2 months of what I think our summer pattern is going to look like. And unfortunately, with a ridge dominating much of the east, it does leave open the possibility for tropical trouble down the way. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the northern mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have a safe day out there.